Some of the people are coming to their first meeting. Will the first two guys stand up so they see who you are? First year guys. Scott, that would be you. I'm pointing at you too. Okay. Turn around and look at Ed Fisher. Stand up in the back. Ed's been in 47 years. 47 years. You guys, especially the linesmen, need to talk to Ed because he does a fantastic job. We didn't get to work together for 36 years because we worked the same position, but he is just a great official. The only difference is he doesn't run his mouth like me and talk a lot of smack, but he does it quietly and he does a great job. So I just wanted to acknowledge it. I'm not talking about you, Green. Okay, the first thing I want to do, I carry over from Rule 2. I made a statement earlier this year that the word lateral is not in the rule book. If you look at page 33 under the definition of sideline, it does say lateral, use a definition, but it has nothing to do with passing, forward or backward. So I can't say that the word lateral is in the book, but Bruce pointed that out to me. So we get started now in Rule 3. We're going to start, I don't use overheads or anything. We're going to go right through the book, mainly because there's a lot of questions that are going to come right on the test straight off of that. Oh my God, Nesser's here. Okay, so open to page 39, and we'll start at Rule 3. Article 1, length of periods. The clock running time for games should be 48 minutes for high schools with periods and intermissions. And we'll go over the table 3-1 in a second. On the note, just refer to page 84 and 85, which is the Kansas shootout, or where that, for you new people, that's how we resolve ties at any level in South Carolina. We're not going to spend time on that tonight, but we don't have ties anymore under any circumstances. Okay, let's go to Article 3. All right, those of you, go ahead and underline periods or periods may be shortened, and then underline of the opposing coaches and the referee. That is a perfect test question where Bruce may change one of the words, like coaches or the referee or something. You need to learn that. Also underline the second line there, by mutual agreement of the opposing coaches and referee. Any remaining period may be shortened at any time of the game terminated. Those are perfect questions that I've seen on the test since the Reign of Terror started in 1999. Article 4, games interrupted because of events beyond the control of responsible administrative authority shall be continued from the point of interruption unless the teams agree to terminate the game with the existing score or is otherwise provided by the state association adoption. Unless you're like a few minutes left in the game and it's 26-0, you stop a game, you just put on what it is, and then if they agree to start the game the next morning, you just tell the coach that you can be there or you cannot be there because it's your game to work. But your point here is you don't terminate. You don't have the authority to terminate the game. The high school league does that. Or the opposing schools can get involved in that. But you just make a note, call Blair, tell her what's going on, and then she'll take it from there. Okay, and we'll have that early in the season. I spent a whole weekend in Orangeburg last year. It was a lot of fun, wasn't it, Jerry?
You terminated before it started.
You said it, you're right. Okay, Article 5. When weather conditions are construed to be hazardous to life or limb of participants, underline the crew of officials is authorized to delay or suspend the game. This is not like Article 3. So you need to know the difference between the two. Once again, a question that you'll see when Bruce is needing about 20 questions left and he's got all his nutbuster questions in and he needs to pass people, he'll put questions like that right on the test. All right, let's move over to page 40 under table 3.1. I'll tell you what you need to know about that. can read the timing rules, 12-minute quarters, we've already gone over that. Here's what you need to know. Here's what you need to know at for halftime. If the home management wants to increase it to 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 minutes, they can do that without the permission of the team, as long as they underline there 5 minutes before. And they don't have to have a reason. It could be senior night every night. They want it 20 minutes, okay? And that's the way it is. The coaches really don't get involved in that. However, if they want to drop it to 14, 13, 12, 10, 11, or 10, then the opposing coaches have to agree. The only time I ever had that was during the '89 Hurricane Monsoon, and what's the coach at South Carolina State? Coach McKeenan at the time. Yeah. He said, man, can we make it 5 minutes? I said, oh, we got to go 10. But we reduced it that night. But that's the opposing coaches, and the opposing coaches have to agree to that. Okay? All right. Let's talk about the mandatory warm-up following an intermission. Okay? The 3-minute warm-up, is it optional? No. Okay, the teams come back out there in time, but they sit on the bench the whole time. Is that a problem?
No.
No, it's not a problem. You just let them do whatever they want for 3 minutes and go for that. You've offered them the opportunity. The reason is the lawyers, if somebody gets hurt during the game, lawyers are going to want to see if you follow the proper procedures. And if you show that you had the 3 minutes posted on the clock and the clock ran down, they've got nothing against you. Okay? All right? Now, let's go down to the notes, because this is one of the most misunderstood rules.
Yes. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes?
What if they don't put the 3 minutes up there and you have an official on the sideline time 3 minutes? How's that?
What is the clock working?
Yeah, but sometimes they don't pay attention up there.
Sometimes they're out eating cookies or hot dogs.
Okay, well, I would make sure both coaches knew the 3 minutes was in operation and that you were timing it. Because you get called into court, you got to tell them how the 3 minutes was timed by you. Okay, good question. Okay, let's go down to notes. Games involving only students below the 9th grade shall be played in 8-minute periods. Underline, only students below the 9th grade, 8-minute periods. In other words, if they have one 9th grader, you've got to play 10-minute quarters. If the coaches want to shorten it, that's fine. But I've had guys in my presence tell them that you...
Wait a minute, Dennis.
8th grade.
Only below the 9th grade.
You gotta play 8 minutes.
That's correct. But I'm saying if they have one 9th grader,
Say it that way, that's why.
okay, then I stand corrected. Does everybody understand? One 9th grader,
You said it right.
You said it right.
okay.
That's Lawrence.
Lawrence is 6:45. I've had people tell the coach, you've got to play, you've got the 8th graders, you've got to play 8-minute quarters. That's not what this note says, and nobody reads that thing. Look, I like 8-minute quarters as much as anybody, and sometimes they'll shorten them, but the rule is they have one 9th grader, they got to play 10 minutes. Okay? All right.
May I ask,
Yes.
doesn't the rule say may play 10 minutes?
No.
Shall.
Read line 1.
He was in the second part of the list. He already read ahead of you.
Okay. We spent too much time on this note.
Says,
Okay.
ninth
Number
graders-
2 is self-explanatory.
Says may
That's what
be
we do.
played.
Huh?
Says may be played in 10-minute periods.
Games involving only students below the 9th grade shall be played in 8-minute periods.
He's reading the next line.
Ninth graders may play 10-minute periods.
May.
because we have schools that ninth graders.
They have.
The problem here is some high schools, they start in ninth grade and some of them start in eighth grade, and it causes problems. They will call Sam and tell him what the level is, and Sam will put the correct C team or B team in there. If you see a C team on your schedule and they end up playing 10-minute quarters, you need to notify Sam so he can adjust the fees on that game. Okay? It's happened in the past before. Let's go on. That will not be on the test. Okay. Section 2, Article 1. Each half of the game shall be started by a kickoff. Before the scheduled starting time, the referee, in the presence of field captains, shall instruct the visiting captains to give heads or tails choice before the coin toss. If the coin toss or simulated coin toss is held on the playing field, underline, it shall be held 3 minutes. I know a lot of us get the captains at 5 and go out there and get the coin toss, but that's not what the rule says. So if we're studying for the test, you need to make sure you got 3. Article 2, at the coin toss or simulated coin toss 3 minutes prior to the scheduled time, not more than 4 team members in game uniform captains from each team may be present at the coin toss, and only one can be designated as the captain, which is the one closest to you as a referee. All the other team members must remain outside the field of play. They cannot come out to the hash mark. Now, when we're talking about 4 members in uniform, okay? Now, if 3 guys, in addition, with broken arms or legs come hobbling out there, they can do that. Isn't that right, Bruce? You called the talk show one night, set me straight on it. Oh, you haven't changed, okay. You're just getting quiet there. So they could have 7 out there, but only 4 in uniform, and the guys are seniors or something, playing their last game, or they got it broken, they could accompany them, okay? Okay, Article 3. I think everybody in here knows the choices that are available. A, to choose whether his team will kick or receive. B, to choose the goal which they defend. Here's the kick, literally. Don't let them say kick. Say, you want to defer. Because if you're a smart guy and let them kick off, and then you make them kick off both halves, you're probably going to have a 15-yard penalty on the coach. So you're right, but then you're wrong. So try to work with them on that. Some of them don't really know the difference between kick and defer. Just make sure they don't kick off twice unless the coach tells you that's what they want to do. I've never had one yet do that. Okay, and obviously the remaining option first goes to the other coach. If he defers, then he'll have the option. All right, Article 4. Between the first and second and the third and fourth period, the team shall change goals. Unless you work for Danny Calder. Team possession, number of the down, relative position of the ball, and the line of the game remain unchanged. What will happen here at the end of the quarter is the lines will come in and give the down and distance and where the clip is. The umpire and the referee will write that all down. So when they go down to the other end, team doesn't pick up an extra 5 yards to pick up. It's worth the extra time to do it right. And so that's very important to do that. Okay, now, let's see here. Section 3, ending a half. Approximately 4 minutes before the end of each half, the referee shall notify the field captains and the coaches of the time remaining. If time is not out, the referee shall order the clock stop while he does this. If an electronic field piece is the official time place, no notification of the stoppage is required. This is really an obsolete thing because only time we ever did it was when we worked on a field that didn't have a clock piece, and we had to notify the coaches there were 4 minutes left in the half. I don't know of any place around here that doesn't have a clock. So if they have a clock operator running the clock up there, this rule does not apply. The last group that had, it was Richland 1, that had the clock kept on the field. The clock was immediately taken off. The night Jody Moots had a 47 and a 39-minute game, and Jack Nettles announced to the fan that Jody was a crook, and things went down from there. So thank Jody when you're out there an extra 20 minutes. Okay. All right. If any time experienced during a down which play shall continue until the down ends, even if a mechanical signal is allowed to sound. Most places now do not have the timer like you do in basketball. There's no buzzer, but somebody has to be aware. You've got to be a good clock watcher, and you make sure that the play gets off because there's no sound. The only time I ever had a problem with that was over Casey, West Columbia, where they had a horn back in the 70s, and they all stopped right in the middle of the play. So we did a do-over because we didn't want anybody to get hurt. But it's not in the rules, except in anything ruled on by the referee, as you learned in Rule 1. Okay, Article 3. We're talking about untimed downs. One of the following, you extended if one of the following occurs. There's a foul by either team and the penalty is accepted except for those fouls listed 334B, which we'll go over in a second. There's a double foul, an inadvertent whistle, and then on D, cross out after the fourth period and the points would affect the outcome of playoff qualifying. 4A's used to have a point system. They don't anymore. The game is over. You don't have to ask if it means anything. If the score is not tied or there's no chance for the losing team that just scored to tie the game is over. There's no ifs, buts, or ands. Article 4. A period shall not be extended by an untimed down if one of the following occurs during a down in which time expires. When the defense fouls during a successful try or field goal and the offended team accepts results of the play, whether it be 5 or 15 yards, with enforcement of the penalty from the succeeding spot. B, there was a foul by either team and the penalty is accepted for unsportsmanlike, which are 15 yards, non-player, which are 5 yards, fouls a specified loss of down, and fouls are enforced on a subsequent kickoff in Rule 822, 3, and 4, which talks about penalty scoring plays, penalties on scoring plays. Somebody in Rule 8 will teach that. Let's go to number 3. Fouls a specified loss of down. Seems to be some problem understanding that rule. That really means a foul that carries a loss of down. You may not have that provision in the play. Let's say A throws the ball in the last play of the period, B intercepts. During that period, during that run back, you have the B1 pitches it forward to B2, an illegal forward pass, okay? All right, you go back to the spot of the foul, mark off the 5 yards, and it's 1st and 10 at that point for Team B, that was real GB at the start of the play, and you end the quarter. There was no loss of down, but that foul includes a loss of down. Does everybody understand the difference? Okay. All right, let's go over to, and then 5 on page 42, fouls for which enforcement by rule result in a safety. You never carry over after a safety. The score is canceled in the event of an accepted penalty that specifies a loss of down, which we just went over. Okay, Article 5. At the end of each period,
The referee shall hold the ball up in one hand overhead to indicate the period has officially ended after delaying momentarily to check that. You can read them, those 4 things. Okay. Bill Spillane never did that his entire life. I'd have a foul on the last play and I'd be getting in there and he'd already have the ball up over his head because he never checked. He was trying to get the game over 2 hours. Competent referees, I'm not saying Bill was incompetent, but 2 hours and 10 minutes, he thought that was too long. Make sure that you turn and make sure there's no flag on the ground or there's no error to correct, because you're not subject to the second line ball provision when at the end of the period. Your statute of limitations isn't as long. So I'm mostly talking to referees in the situation. But for purposes of the test, you need to know Article 5. Article 6, if a dead ball foul occurs after time expires for any period, the penalty shall be measured from the succeeding spot unless 825 applies. And what they're saying there is the foul, if it carries over to overtime, one of the options is to the succeeding kickoff. You can't do it, so it has to go on the succeeding spot. That's what they're talking about there. All right, starting and stopping the clock. The clock shall start for a period if a period begins with a free kick when the kick is touched, other than first touching by K. And you can write in not when legally touched. We haven't had that for 15 years. Not when legally touched. Because in the first 10 yards, the ball, you have a beanbag for illegal touching. After 10 yards, even if they catch in the air, you might have a flag and a bean or a flag representing, but you got clock starting. And so you need to make sure you understand that. If the period begins with a snap, when the ball is legally snapped. Okay, Article 2. The clock shall start with a ready for play signal on a down beginning with a snap if the clock was stopped for any reason other than specified Rule 343, which is where we alter the timing rules. We'll get to that in a second. Or an untimed down. A, for an official's timeout, other when B is awarded a new series or either team is awarded a new series following a legal kick. B, because the ball has become dead following any foul provided there's been no charged timeout during the dead ball period interval, the down is not an extension of a period or try. The action which caused the down to end did not cause the clock to be stopped. Or because of an inadvertent whistle, unless B or R is in possession of the time of the inadvertent whistle during the running play, and they choose the result of the play, which I always thought that was the rule, but some people in the state said, oh, they had the option. Well, I think Bruce is at work again, and so what they're saying, if a guy's running for 60 yards and you blow the whistle for a touchdown at the 5-yard line, Andy, I think that's happened to you, hadn't it? Okay. But it wasn't the last play of the period. I try to work you in, Danny. Then in that situation, the team is going to obviously take they're going to take the result of the play and take the ball first down at the 5-yard line, and then you will not extend the period if that was the last play. Okay, that clearly is an editorial change, and you'll need to know that. Although I thought that was a rule altogether. Now, first, you guys, Article 3, very important. It's put a bracket by all A through J and write major clock stoppers. Okay, and the ones I want you to circle are B and C, because they're going to come into effect here in a second. I'm going to give a few situations here, and some of the veteran guys are going to show how little they know about this, because I'm going to trick them. Okay, well, before I do that, I want to talk about the old timing rules. In 1996, we used not have B and C in here. Yes, Gary?
Real quick, Dan.
So, we're talking about the wording on the change of the intermittent whistle. It's still untimed down, correct? So if it's the last play of the quarter and B runs it back, and you blow the whistle, you still have an intermittent whistle, so you still have it untimed down, even though the clock would not start, the clock would start on the snap.
Correct, yes. Yes. Yes.
Bruce, what's the ruling on that?
I don't even know what the question is.
Okay, we're
So-
talking about Section 4, Article 2, C. It's in bold.
If you have an inadvertent whistle on the last play of the quarter, you always have it untimed down, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. So even though, because the way it reads, it's like he has an option to retain possession and almost make the whistle go.
Well, we don't question that, but we're gonna still allow them to run that play, next play in the quarter.
They can take the result of the play
Mm-hmm.
and
But they're gonna cover that rule 4. The
Run
question
time down,
is,
yeah.
do we extend the period?
Yes.
You're
Yes.
right. Does everybody understand that? You do extend it. Just read C. I misinterpreted. If you have an inadvertent whistle on the last play of the quarter, you're extending it.
Extending the
Quarter.
going.
No exceptions.
We're not moving the ball, right, just play it.
No matter what.
Okay, now let's go back to the major clock stoppers. You guys have circled B and C. Old timing rules, we started in 1996, we had where B and C didn't exist. Then they put B because referees were winding the clock about the time the guy returning the kickoff hit the ground and they were getting 20 seconds off the clock. And so they put like college and pro on the snap. Okay. Then they added the one later about the illegal kick and a new series awarded either K or R, you go on the snap. Okay. What we do is you take B and C out if you're working, you new guys that are working a C team or a JV game. If a guy returns the kickoff up to the 20 and it's not one of these other things, didn't go out of bounds, ball didn't go in the end zone, we're going to restart the clock on the ready for play as soon as the ball is put down. Okay? That's the old timing rules. We don't, on a punt return, that unless they call for a fair catch, we're going to wind the clock back on a punt. If it's tackle in bounds, we're going to wind the clock up. The games were lasting too long, and so we adopted the old timing rules. Plus, if they kick off, K kicks off on a kickoff, and they kick the ball 2 feet and fall on it, the clock's going to start on the snap because R never got a chance to put the ball in play. That's covered by the current rule, but if we're using the old timing rules, that has to be considered too, because that's an unfair advantage. But otherwise, just take out B and C, and you could pretty much understand what old timing rules are. I know we haven't, it's been like 23 years that we've used these new rules, and so in 1997, we tried to go with the Friday night rules, and the games were just too long, so they shortened them. Okay. Now, here's some plays. I'm going to ask you, the veteran guys, because you're first year guys, I'm going to know. Okay, we have an interception. A throws a pass, B intercepts. B runs down the sideline, and they're hit and fumbled, and then A recovers the ball. Okay, we stop the clock. A's ball, 1st and 10, new series. Okay, when does the clock start? The clock starts on the ready because a new series was not awarded to B. It ended up back in A's possession. And the theory there is because the offense is already on the field, the defense is already on the field. Is really, we stopped it to get the change set, and we go with it. Okay?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. All right. Next question, next play. We have it's fourth down and 6. R runs on the field as the 12th man, and then he gets back off the field, doesn't influence the play. K kicks the ball, and then R receives it, runs about 5 yards, he gets tackled in the middle of the field. Okay, the kicking team accepts the penalty from 4th and 6 down to 4th and 1. When does the clock start? On the ready, because no new series is awarded to K or to R. But if we take that same play, and you take the same play and a fair catch was called for, then we got a different situation, because what stopped the clock was the fair catch, which on your list is a major clock stopper, so we'll go on the snap. The referee should know this, but sometimes he might need help. Two of the sorriest Legion of Honors I've ever seen. All right. Okay, now, here's another play. I'm going to make it a lot harder. K, 4th and 10 for K from their own 30. Snap goes to the punter, K1. His kick is blocked, doesn't cross the line. K1 picks it up and runs 70 yards down the sideline, and he's tackled in bounds. 1st and 10 for K. When does the clock start?
Snap. Snap.
On the ready?
Snap.
Okay. I want you to look.
Snap.
I got you. Okay.
Legal kick.
Legal kick.
Okay.
First, what a new series after legal kick. Snap.
Look at C. Either team is awarded a new series following a legal kick. A legal kick doesn't have to cross the line.
Right.
It wasn't punted off, kicked off the ground, which would then make it a fumble, and then you would revert back to B to see if you had it. But in this situation, it met all the requirements of C, so the clock starts on the snap. That's why the sharp guys like Sam Davis come into effect. Well, you haven't been here long enough to insult me yet. Okay. All right. All right. Article 4 is simply when the clock will be stopped with, you can read that. On I never really understood why my games were 10 minutes longer when I worked with Sleepy, but it just seemed they were. I don't know. Just an observation. That's all I have to say. At least he was on time. Okay. Article 5. The clock shall not start on first touching by K. Okay, we've already gone over the fact that it has to be in the first 10 yards. And you throw a beanbag, and the clock doesn't start until it's subsequently touched by R, or it's touched farther than 10 yards down the field. Okay? So, that's what they're talking about here. When a team attempts to conserve or consume time illegally, the referee shall order the clock started or stopped. This is the rule where we alter the timing rule. This could be any time during the game. It can be in the first quarter when there's a gust of wind and you think it's a big deal, but you got to have a flag down, okay? And or like with 3 minutes left in the game, team's out of timeouts, and the offense commits a false start. You mark off the 5 yards, and you're not going to reward the defense. I mean the offense by committing a false start, letting 50 seconds go off the clock. That's where you alter the timing rules. But you can't alter it if they're just consuming time, piling, unpiling. You haven't thrown a flag, so you can stop it. You got to restart the clock. So this is where you alter the timing rule. And it used to be 3-6-3 for many, many years for you old timers. It was 3-4-6 The college is 3-4-3. They all have the same rule. You alter the timing rule to make it fair. Okay, now, 3-4-7. When the penalty and underline accepted with less than and underline less and underline 2 minutes remaining in either half, the offended team will have the option to start the game on the snap. Okay? So you see the requirements. If it's a decline penalty, this doesn't come into effect. If it's got to be with 1:59 or less left. And the best way to do this is I always go to the coach on penalty enforcement. I've had too many problems over the years. I don't go to the captains anymore. I want the coach to get involved. But I'm also going to go to the coach to see what he wants to do. Okay. Last year on the test, Bruce had a really good question where with 31 seconds left in the half, the option was given to the team. They declined it. The clock was started. Then with 7 seconds left, there was a pass where there was an inadvertent whistle. Okay. Now, Bruce was testing to see if you knew the rule on inadvertent whistle, and he was also testing to see if you thought that they had the right, they retained that right to have that option, which they do. And so the question, I don't remember if it was true or false, but the question was, with 7 seconds, you could take that option. That would never happen in a game, probably, but I know many of you were probably taken down by that. So that was a good question. He loves, tricking people on Rule 3 because he calls me up and says, hey, 93 million people missed Rule 3 question, good teaching, or something like that. But at any rate, well, let's take a real life example. Let's go to the Shrine Bowl last year, where the great John Hill, District 8 Director, was refereeing the game. And they had, apparently there was a discussion whether South Carolina was on defense. It was inside their 40-yard line. North Carolina had the ball. And they decided that it wasn't an illegal substitution, but it took about 5 minutes to figure that out. Sleepy, were you in on that conversation? Or did you sleep during all this? Okay. So, at any rate, so after they did it, I think John had enough of all the delay and he wound the clock. After Bruce had told him in the pregame, be aware of that. And I went up to challenge him after the game. And at first he didn't know what 3-4-7 was. And I said, why did you go on the snap? And didn't you go on the snap? He goes, oh, I messed up. Well, what can I say then? But it's a new rule. And it went for South Carolina. North Carolina still scored on the play, so it didn't cost them any points. However, Sleepy, you didn't have any input on that one? Okay.
Sleepy didn't even know the rule.
Sleepy was on the extra point going. All right, so all I got for you, Sleepy, today. You're off the hook. All right.
Don't believe it.
Okay.
So then,
go ahead.
inadvertent whistle, the team still has the right to say they want it to start on the ready to play, even if it's an inadvertent.
Now, inadvertent whistle will always be, unless it's the last time down in the period. Last play of the period. You're going to extend, okay? But the clock's going to start on the ready unless it's a free kick. There's an argument over whether, the ball, you had a fumble in the end zone and there was an inadvertent whistle blown while in the end zone. Which rule supersedes the ball became dead behind the goal line or the inadvertent whistle rule? Bruce has said go with the inadvertent whistle rule because you get a wind. But there's no rules to support that. So you just have to decide. I've had that happen in the game. Okay. Section 5, Article 1. Each team is entitled to 3 timeouts. For new guys, underline unused first timeouts cannot be used in the second half, and unused second timeouts cannot be used in overtime. That was one of the great rules they put in. I used to go to double overtime, team had 5 timeouts remaining. It's ridiculous. Okay, so they're not cumulative. They get 3.5, 1 per overtime. After the first overtime is over, they get 1 for the second overtime. Everybody understand that? All right, a charged timeout occurs when the ball is dead and at the request of either player or the head coach is legally granted. When a decision on a penalty is pending, a timeout should not be granted to a team unless the captain makes his choice. That's not to be confused with the decision of whether they're going to free kick or put the ball in play by snap. They can call a timeout to decide that, but they have to decide whether they want the penalty enforced from the previous spot or from the spot of the foul in the 15 yards or whatever. They have to make that decision before you grant the timeout. Okay. The head coach's designee shall remain in place for the entire game. The coach and the head coach's designee. Now, if the coach gets tossed from the game, he can designate. Don't be stupid and say on his way out, hey coach, who do you want to designate? Because you'll probably have a third flag down. You wait till he leaves and then ask which coach wants to become the caller. I had somebody who did that one night. Anyway, so do that. But now, if he chooses to sit up in the box and designates the offensive coordinator to do that, that's fine. But he can't, if he decides to come down for the second half, he can't make a change. It's irreversible. Okay? Do you understand the difference between the two? All right. B, the repair of faulty player equipment requires the assistance of a team attendant or attendants, which, without the assistance of a team attendant, delays the ready for play signal more than 25 seconds as in 3510D or 3510E. Look, we spent 10 minutes on this the other night. If you send a guy out of the game because it's mouthpiece, where we used to have a flag down, you send him out. Rule 1, we have a change. You send him out. They can call 3 timeouts and he doesn't get to come back in. Okay? We understand that. If you send him out, you send him out yourself. It's irreversible. There's no bringing him by his way back in. Okay? All right. A timeout is requested for the purpose of reviewing a game official's application of a rule which may have been misapplied or interpreted. The timeout remains charged to the requesting team if no change in the ruling results. So, if you have the coach still, as we'll see soon here, a coach has the right to ask for an interpretation, a clarification on a rule that he thinks you may have missed. Okay, they've got no timeouts left, so you charge the time out to yourself, and you got to go listen to him. And he says, and you don't change the ruling, what do? You step back. Oh, Tom, that's right, front pocket. 5 yards, delay game. Okay? So there's a penalty for doing that. But as soon as you realize that he's discussing something other than a rule, conference ends. I've only had 2 in my entire career. One was with Homer up at Mid-Carolina in front of 10,000 people. Coach Richardson called us over to tell us how sorry we were and all that good stuff. But the other one, this guy called me over and he said, that guy out there in the middle of the field is crazy. He was looking at George Hewitt. And I said, well, Coach, you may be right. However, charge timeout. Those are the only 2 I've ever had. I wish he was here. He would remember it too.
Yeah, I would be up there.
He might have been pointing at me. I don't know.
Maybe jumping over these tables.
But when I was with George, I was only the second craziest guy. All right, moving on. Article 3 at the bottom of page 43. A signal to charge timeout shall not exceed 1 minute. The referee shall notify both teams within 5 seconds. Underline the referee, I've seen this one in before, shall notify both teams within 5 seconds after the timeout expires and shall mark the ball ready for play. It's not the back judge, it's the referee to notify. Okay. Charge timeout shall be reduced to the length, underline first year guys, if both have to be ready. If the team that calls the timeout and the other team's not ready, you have to wait the full minute. Okay? Article 4, successive timeouts may be granted during the same dead ball period. Officials timeout may follow a charge timeout for the continuous coach-referee conference or if safety is involved. When a team's permissible charge timeouts for the half have been used, its captain, underline captain and coach, both have to be should be notified. That's Bruce has put that in verbatim several times. Probably not this year because he's just to aggravate me, but it's been on there before. Okay, Article 5. After a team has used its permissible charge timeouts for the half, any subsequent request shall be denied unless it is for an apparently injured player who is so designated when the request is made. Okay. Got one guy in here that's qualified to check the guy dig, and otherwise 90% of you in here aren't qualified. So we're not doctors, so we just assume if he's down, you don't assume that he's faking, okay? So you stop the clock, let him get off the field, and just assume that it's legitimate, okay? Necessary repair, player equipment, we've gone over that, and a possible misapplication of a rule. Some of these rules kind of repeat several times, overlap. Article 6, if repair of equipment without the assistance of a team attendant delays the ready for play for more than 25 seconds, or requires the assistance of a team attendant and the player's team has used all its permissible timeout, the player shall be replaced for one down. Okay. But that's different from what we talked about before. Player is on the field, you stop the clock, he's repair, and he has something wrong with his mouthpiece, and he gets it fixed in 20 seconds, he can stay in the game. That's what this is talking about. But if you see a mouthpiece dangling out on the sideline, they've taken that out of the delay. We'll go over that in a second. The delay game part, and now it's in Rule 1. It says you send him off, and he stays out of play. So I would expect we'll be sending a lot more guys out of the game this year under that new rule. Okay.
So even if you have halftime, Dennis, when you come back, you guys still sit out that first.
No. But we're going to get to that in a second, Mike.
Well, hurry up.
Sergeant at Arms, have these two people removed. An official's timeout, which is not charged to either team, occurs during a dead ball. In D, look at when captains are notified of the time remaining. That would be if there's a place with a 4-minute warning. But Jody's taking care of that. I don't even see what D is going to come into effect. Let's jump down to G. For unusual heat or humidity timeout, which may create a health risk to the players. And you guys, we're going to be told for X number of weeks to have heat and humidity timeouts when the temperature is over 70, 75 degrees. Mandatory. You've got to take it sometime if you can take it during the score at about the 6-minute mark of the quarter, you can do that. Or you do like Bill Peter, stop in the middle of a drive and get marked off by the school. But what you want to do is on a change of possession or something like that, that's a good time, and you give them the full time. Or you can extend it on a score, but you've got to let both coaches know that you're extending it. The only problem with that is they're usually ready to go within a fast time, and then they'll wonder where the heat and humidity timeout. Now, one problem I've run into that, Bill Kimry came down and got mad at me when he was at Calhoun County because he said that he hadn't had one of those all year. And I said, thank you, Bill, for telling me that. And I let Charlie go check and see if look at the tapes and see if they've been taking heat and humidity timeouts. Then Kimberly came over a little bit later after I told him I was going to have Charlie check. He said, maybe the first and the second game, I can't be sure. I said, are there any other games that you want to tell me that they didn't? Because you really teed me off. And he finally admitted that he couldn't remember. But, you know, to make a statement like that, I'm going to call the coach on the carpet for it. That is very important that you do that, because we talked about before Mike Gary got here, a litigious situation that if you don't do what you're supposed to do, then the lawyer's going to get all over you on that. Okay. I'm not going to get into Article 7. You can read that article. Article 8 on authorized conferences. An authorized conference may be held during a charged timeout, an official's timeout, and if granted by the referee. An official's timeout is one that we don't charge to either team. We can take as many as we want. It's unlimited. I had an unusual official's timeout one time down at Ellery during an extra point. Tim Foreman's under the goalpost, and George is in the middle, and Jimmy Gregory's on the side. And George yelled out to Jimmy, quit calling them chicken crap. He didn't say crap either calls. And Jimmy walked in. Next thing you know, they were bowing up, and I thought they were going to deck each other. and Tim Foreman's got him running. He says, I thought you had this was your crew. I said, they just don't get along very well, do they, Tim? I was so mortified, I didn't tell Bruce about it at the end of the year. I thought we'd all get suspended. But he later suspended me anyway, but it didn't really matter. That's an example of an official's timeout. Now, in 3, if granted by the referee in 3-5-10, here's what you need to know on B. Only one type of authorized conference may be used during any charged timeout. You can't go outside the numbers and then go back between the hashes and finish it up. Cannot do that, okay? So make sure that you get them outside the 9-yard marker. It's either the top of the numbers or the lines. Some of you, probably me, will be working this year. The lines coming across the field. And C, only the outside yard mark conference can be held in 3-5-8. And they're talking there about the coaches referee conference. Okay. Article 9. And everybody understands, although it's been covered already, what the two types are, what the restrictions are. You can almost do anything outside, okay? But only one coach in the middle of the field, and he can't take his earphones off and give it to a player. So, and he can only have 11 out there, okay? So, I don't think many teams do that anymore. Most of them, they bring it over, but make sure they get over outside the line. You don't want them lining up too far outside. Article 9, unless the clock has already stopped, an official's timeout shall be taken as soon as the ball becomes dead, following a change of team possession, or whenever the covering official declares the ball dead and appears to reach the line of the game. This is a combination of a bunch of things we've already gone over. Article 10, the Mike Gary rule. An official's timeout, which is not charged either team, occurs, and the players replaced for at least one down. And Mike, tell us the exceptions on that and underline halftime, overtime, intermission.
Section 6.
One down?
Never mind.
Okay. So, those are exceptions. That's been on the test before. Okay, now A through D. We've already gone over about the apparently injured player. B, the same thing applies. You use your discretion. If you think the guy's not fit, you send him off, and then he won't be sent, there'll be a qualified medical person sends him back on, so you won't get sued. You'll get sued for not sending him out if the guy was proven he was woozy before you let him play. If you find the bleeding, any kind of blood, it can be dry or anything, he goes until they clean him up. He doesn't come back in the game. If he comes back in the game and you see the same thing, you send him back out, and he has to sit out for another play. If the helmet comes off completely during the down or subsequent dead ball related to the down without being directly attributed to a foul by the opponent, okay? We are supposed to stop the clock when that happens, but as Big Bird described Monday, the violations are no longer. We definitely do not. If we send the guy off for whatever reason, any in here, it doesn't come back on, even if they call 3 timeouts. You can't buy your way back in. All right? Article 11 strictly talks about the coaches referee conference, and we're not going to go into that again. It's clearly, we've already talked about what happens, so we'll go on to section 6, ball ready for play and delay. The ball is marked ready for play after it's been placed for down. The referee gives a ready for play signal. The 25-yard count, 25-second count shall then begin. Okay, Article 2, action or inaction which prevents promptness in putting the ball in play is delay of game. Underline that. This is the delay of game section of the book with some changes this year. Failure to snap a free kick within 25 yards of the ball is marked ready for play. This is called by who throws the flag on that? The back judge. Even on a kickoff, the back judge throws it. Okay. Unnecessary carrying the ball after it's become dead. That could be put in there. I've never had that happen. A coach's referee conference after all permissible timeouts have been used and the coach requests a coach's referee conference. We've already gone over that. Now, D, E, and F have been reconfigured into the new rule, and you'll notice the first thing out there is the mouthpiece dangling. And I used to tell you that it was God's way of punishing you for calling the play in the first place, because then they wind the clock back up, and that was in the delay game. Now they've got it covered, thanks to Bruce and his boys. If you see the guy's mouthpiece dangling, and he's lined up ready to go, stop the clock, send him off. Can't come back into the game, okay? That's how we handle that. But D, E, and F, snapping or kicking the ball marked ready for play, this should not happen if the umpire is over the ball on the kickoff, because I'm not going to blow the whistle till I get the signal from the umpire up there. So, but if he does kick the ball before I blow ready for play, it's a delay of game. Failure to umpire. Okay, so what I said before was the team is sitting on them, but you don't throw a flag and you just stop it because there's like 20 guys on top. You're going to restart the clock, but you're not going to alter the timing rules because there was no flag on the ground. Okay? All right. Now Article 3 is a question. A team shall play within 2 minutes after being ordered to do so by the referee. 2, not 1. 2. Perfect test question. There's only one guy in this room that's had the privilege of doing this. So we'll go on to Article 4. Game management is responsible for clearing the field of play and the end zones at the beginning of each half, so play may begin at the scheduled starting time. Now, this is a very misunderstood rule, and you need to understand the difference between this rule here and where we said the coach didn't have his team back on the field for the start of the second half. Okay? Let's say the coach has his team back on the field for the start of the second half. Okay? but the home ban went long, okay? It's a game management problem. The penalty for that is a delay of game, right here. Delay of game, don't worry about the forfeiture of game, but delay of game. Now, I love Mike Johnson, Barry's son, but Mike messed that up at Memorial a couple of years ago, and I got a chance to work a semi-pro game a couple of weeks ago, and I got to torture him. He says, I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say. But he learned, but the best way to learn a rule is by learning it in the classroom and knowing the difference between the two if you're confronted with that situation.
Well, you can always get the Baptist preacher to move them on the field for you.
You know, you and I are the only ones understand that, and Bruce, and maybe Ed. Okay. All right, now we're going to switch gears, go to section 3.7, substitutions. Okay. Between Article 1, between downs, any number of eligible substitutes may replace players. Upon meeting the criteria of 232.12, replaced players shall begin to leave the field within underline 3 seconds. Now, is that for the offense or the defense? Both. Okay. Probably easier to catch on the offense, but the main part about that is you want to make sure if you're on the defensive player to have 12 on the field, try to nail them for the illegal substitution. Don't let the play get off, because in high school we still have a penalty. Penalty ought to be, the other 10 yards ought to be on the official that didn't count the players, but kill the play and mark off the 5 yards, because if you let it go off, it's going to be 15 yards, probably for illegal participation, because that play probably is going to influence the play. All right. A replaced player or substitute is required to leave the field on the side, underlined side on which his team box is located, and go directly to the team box. Okay, team's got 11 players, and the 12th player comes in. It's 1st and 10 for A at their own 10-yard line. Okay, the 12th player comes in, boom, within 3 seconds, A12 goes off the field over his own end line. What do you do in that situation? Immediately throw the flag for illegal substitution. Kill it, 1st and 15. He did not go off in accordance with this rule. If he goes off on the wrong sideline, the same thing. I'm not sure I've ever seen that happen, but I know I've nailed a bunch of guys going off through the end zone because they were about to snap the ball. Okay, Article 3, during the same dead ball interval, no substitute shall become a player and then withdraw, and no player shall withdraw and re-enter as a substitute unless a penalty is accepted. All right, and the new guys and everybody should underline these 4. You got to memorize it, because Bruce will put 3 of them in there. He'll put them 4 in there, and then he'll throw occasionally a little caveat in there. One year he put a player substitute goes off, and the linesman throws a flag for out of the box, first offense, warning. And we throw a flag even on the warning, but there's no penalty marked off, no penalty associated with it. For purpose of this rule, that doesn't count. It's an illegal substitution if he comes back in. Especially know that for the test. Okay. See you, Jody. Article 4. During a down, a replaced player substitute who attempts unsuccessfully to leave the field and does not participate in any effect or constitutes illegal substitution. Okay. You call this when 12 men are on the field and it's imminent. The only time I saw this affect a game, and it affected the state final, was a Spartanburg-Somerville game in 1985, Bruce was waiting for Bill Balknight to retire, and Bill was working as a linesman. Back in those days, we only had 5 officials. Sparbrook sent a player in behind Bruce, never got across the line. Just remember, that's not encroachment, it's illegal substitution, because he's not a player yet. But he never made it across. And the field goal attempt to tie the game by Somerville was about 5 yards short. I'm not saying it made a difference in the game, but I felt sorry for the crew because back in those days, who was going to call that? The line judge was down under the goalpost. The guy was behind Balknight. I know Sam Owens couldn't see it. And so, it was just an unfortunate situation. But that is, somebody's got to catch the illegal sub if they're on the field and they don't make it across the line. Somebody should have probably seen that. I can't pin it in a 5-man crew. It's really hard to catch. But I remember that like it was yesterday. So, pardon? Yeah, and we started at 6 o'clock too. I still book lacrosse too. I'm just kidding, man. All right.
Wow.
It's good stuff. Okay. Now, on the note, participation, if the guy participates in the play, this comes out of this section and goes into 9.6 and is illegally participating, 12 men. Okay, so that's not included in here. All right, and entering Article 5, and entering substitute on, okay, we've already got over that. Go Article 6, during a down or replace a player or substitute who enters the field but does not participate constitutes illegal substitution. And now while we're at it, when you get your case book, I don't think too much of the case book, but they do have a great chart on 3.7, and make a note to open it, all the situations where you have illegal substitution. I went over some of them, but some of them are succeeding spots, some of them are previous, simultaneous with the snap, some of them are different things. And that is a great chart, rather than me go all the way through it and everything. Does anybody have any questions about anything I went over?
Thank you, Dennis.
Horace, thanks for staying, buddy.
Give him a hand. Okay, Thursday, Rule 4. We got 2 third-year guards that covering that rule, Hosek and Hillpish. So being here to see what's going to happen on Thursday from the talent that we brought in 3 years ago.